Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Radhika, and I look after the research practice at the International Sustainable Finance Center of Excellence. We understand that reporting and disclosure are essential for sustainable finance because they ensure transparency and accountability, allowing investors to make informed decisions. So transparent reporting drives better corporate practices and aligns financial flows with sustainability goals. We would like to dedicate the next 45 minutes in sharing our learning on the subject of reporting and disclosure, and are delighted to present you an excellent set of experts who would present their insights on the current landscape, gaps and opportunities in Ireland, and of course speak about a course on sustainable finance, reporting and disclosures. Today's event, it coincides with the launch of our report, which is called the Charting the Course: Insights into Ireland's Sustainable Finance, ESG Reporting and Disclosure Landscape. It is commissioned by the Centre and with support from Skillnet Ireland and authored by Davy Horizons. Now I'll invite Dr. Gillian Power, Acting CEO of the Centre, to share with us about the Centre and our motivation to be working on the subject of sustainable finance. Gillian is a sustainability leader with a unique blend of international finance, communications, and ESG expertise. She has championed the integration of ESG factors within financial institutions, leveraging her skills in strategic planning, risk management, and stakeholder engagement. Gillian is a strong advocate for a sustainable future who brings a wealth of experience and a proven ability to translate complex sustainability issues into clear and compelling communications. Gillian's background includes experience in the public sector, insurance sector, and within NGOs, demonstrating her well-rounded approach. She holds a PhD from Trinity College, Dublin. Here you go, Gillian.
Thank you, Radhika, and apologies everyone, we've had some connection issues here this morning, so I'm really very sorry for having delayed everything. Thank you again for coming to this. So I'm Gillian Power. I'm currently the acting CEO of the Centre, and I'm going to very briefly talk to you about basically what the Centre is, in case you're not familiar with us, and how we can help you moving forward with my colleague Siobhan on your skills needs. So to support the goal of Ireland becoming a leading sustainable finance centre by 2026, an international sustainable finance centre of excellence, what we call the Centre, was established. Aligned with government policy outlined in the Ireland for Finance Strategy 2025, the Sustainable Finance Roadmap and the Climate Action Plan 2022, the establishment of the Centre of Excellence is Action 1 of Ireland's Sustainable Finance Roadmap. It is, we are a not-for-profit established as a central outcome of the Ireland for Finance strategy, therefore, and we work to advance sustainable finance through both expertise and impact. Supported by Skillnet Ireland, Ireland's first sustainable finance roadmap was developed by what's now the Centre, used to be previously Sustainable Finance Ireland, in collaboration with public and private stakeholders across Ireland and internationally. This roadmap outlines 5 key pillars with 18 specific actions to achieve our goals. And one of these critical pillars focuses very much on developing a talented workforce equipped to handle the challenges and opportunities of sustainable finance. However, in order to develop this, we must first identify exactly what they need to stay ahead. And this is where our research reports, such as the one we're launching today, come in and are so incredibly important. At the Centre, we work holistically to identify needs that seek to address these training needs so that Ireland can become a global leader in sustainable finance. Now, as we all know, the European Union's drive towards achieving climate neutrality by 2050 is reinforced by an increasingly rigorous policy and regulatory framework governing the ESG domain. With each new regulation, organisations, whether within or beyond the EU, face additional responsibilities and reporting mandates. And in the Finance Centre, particularly within the EU, reporting and disclosure standards and regulations are crucial for ensuring transparency, accountability, and comparability of ESG practices among financial institutions. They help investors make informed decisions, ensure regulatory compliance, and mitigate those risks associated with environmental, social, and governance factors. These standards also support the EU's broader sustainability goals by promoting responsible investment and fostering long-term economic stability. So today's report could not be more timely, as Helen will demonstrate when she details the various gaps and challenges her team has identified in the report, which we are very pleased to launch today. One major issue we in the Centre in particular recognise is data quality and availability, which also presents a potential opportunity for improvement. Other significant challenges the sector needs to address include integration with financial reporting, regulatory compliance, resource constraints, and verification processes. So at the Centre, our research efforts encapsulated in this report today aim to continuously expand knowledge and information to create an ecosystem where the sector can enhance and evolve its sustainability and climate action initiatives. We are very pleased to have partnered with Helen and her brilliant team at Davy to produce this today. And I must also thank my colleague Radhika, who is leading this webinar today, on her sustained commitment to producing research reports of this very high quality, with the collaborative efforts she puts into us and our side, and working with teams such as Helen's. So that's it from me, really. Following this, my colleague Siobhan is going to talk to you about the training opportunities, which you might be interested in after listening to about this report or reading it. So I'll finally end by saying our research that you will see today aims to make real world impact. And you can see this from the types of training that we will have on offer to fill some of the gaps identified in this today. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Gillian. That was an excellent start to the day. Thank you so much. I'll now invite Dr. Helen from Davy Horizons. She is the lead author for this report. She is an associate director of sustainability. Helen has over 15 years of experience in sustainability leadership in a multifaceted career spanning supply chain and procurement, diversity and inclusion, human rights advocacy, and academia. Prior to joining Davy Horizons, she led initiatives to establish digital sustainability solutions and embed ESG risk controls across procurement and supply chain. Helen also holds a rich history advocating for human rights in the NGO sector in both Ireland and internationally, and has previously held positions as head of the Council for Immigrants in Ireland and advisor to the Council for the EU delegation to the UN. She holds a PhD from the University of Limerick, exploring EU member states' dynamics at the United Nations. Thank you, Helen. I'll just share your slide.
Thanks so much, Radhika. Thanks for the lovely introduction. And again, just to sort of reiterate, we were working very well in collaboration with ISFCOE on this report. What I'll be doing for the next sort of 10 minutes will be sharing insights from the study with you both, focusing on current ESG reporting and disclosure practices, both in the EU, globally, and what that really means practically for all of us working in the Irish financial services sector. And hopefully we'll have a nice discussion afterwards based on that. If you want to move to the next slide, Radhika, that would be really helpful, please. So the agenda that we're proposing would be, we're just going to spend a little bit of time looking through the study methodology and insights. We'll discuss the methods used when we were gathering the data and how we gained our insights. Again, as I said, we'll be looking through the EU regulatory landscape. It is ever evolving and becoming more and more pressing and prevalent for all of us probably in attendance today. And then we will look at the report findings, including a detailed look, as was mentioned earlier, on data availability, how we're managing that in the Irish financial services and what the impacts they are, and possibly the path forward, looking at actual real practical solutions to how we can probably face on those report findings and challenges and really work to make us a leader in the field with regard to reporting and disclosure and all the challenges ahead. I hope that's pretty open and clear in terms of an agenda. It's nice and short. I hope you'll take the time afterwards to read the report, which will give you a lot more detail on it. If you can move to the next slide, please, Radhika. So the methodology we used was, first of all, why were we doing it and the purpose and the scope? The aim of it was to enhance our understanding, and particularly, as was mentioned, to ensure that there's good comprehensive preparedness of financial institutions in Ireland for the evolving ESG reporting and disclosures landscape. So this included identifying current practices, gaps, and providing guidance for accurate and efficient ESG reporting. As we know, it's a very complex area. We conducted a comprehensive literature review. We analysed academic papers, industry reports and publications from both the EU, the Central Bank and beyond. This was critical as it helped us understand the broader context with which we're all working in. We're not working in isolation in the island of Ireland. And it helped us pinpoint specific issues faced by Irish institutions, and it allowed us to see what other international institutions were also doing in this area. At the core of it, however, was probably interviews, finding out from those practitioners who really are involved in this day to day, listening to what they were suggesting, what they are seeing on the ground. These were unstructured interviews with these key stakeholders, including financial analysts, sustainability professionals, and representatives from significant financial organisations across Ireland, and also across key institutions globally. Actually, we got a great cross section of interviewees. They did provide great real-time insights into the challenges that we're all facing, and they really did help ground the report and the study to understanding those practical challenges that we're facing. The findings were also reviewed and validated by experts across the financial services sector and a working group put together by ISFCOE. And this step was absolutely critical in terms of understanding the reliability of the data that we collated and the depth of those interviews and the analysis that we made. I would, however, at this point, as with all studies, note that there are limitations. The nature and breadth of the data posed challenges. Qualitative interviews require measured interpretation and can be seen as being subjective. So while they do provide valuable insights, this is an evolving field and it's moving very quickly. So there's also an essential, to take the report, but be aware that times are changing and moving, and new developments will also be progressing. Even since this report was written, there's probably more movement. So that's important to grasp just in terms of understanding the context within which the report was within which we wrote the report. If you could move on to the next slide, that would be great, Radhika. So just for those in attendance, and I'm sure you're all really, really familiar with it, but there's no harm in just jumping back in and running through it quickly for those who may not be as familiar. This is the EU sustainability reporting and disclosures landscape. There's a nice graph here on the left-hand side that maybe afterwards, if we distribute the deck, you can take a little bit more time to look at. This sort of outlines the EU Sustainable Finance Action Plan. It was launched in 2018 and it includes 10 key action items aimed at redirecting capital towards sustainable economic activities. An example of this would have been probably bringing in the EU classification system for sustainable activities, otherwise known as the EU taxonomy, and then creating the standards and labels for green financial products, which would be SFDR, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. The CSRD, which I'm sure is becoming more and more familiar to all of us listening, we are all going to be impacted by it, from either reporting from 2024 to report in 2025, or from data in 2026 to report in 2027. But I'd say most of us will all be hit to report next year. This requires detailed ESG reporting and it replaces the NFRD. But what's critical in this is to understand the size of this. There's a minimum of 1,000 data points across the E, the S and the G, and it requires a lot of granular data. And this is new to most of us facing into that. There's also, which I've pointed out here, a second key area of double materiality, which emphasizes both the impact of the company on the environment and the impact that the environmental or the ESG issues have on the company. That's also very new and coming into play in CSRD. And I'm sure a lot of companies and a lot of financial institutions are well on their journey of trying to engage with this. There's also a very important issue that's coming up later on, not necessarily in 2025 or 26, but it's something called XBRL, and that this data needs to be in digital format, to be read, to be shared, to be accessed freely and available. And that will also, in terms of rating, have for financial institutions big impacts as well, both for looking at investors and investments in terms of that data availability for consistency, and also in-house in terms of rating. so that also needs to always be just borne in mind when we're looking at something like the CSRD. There's also obviously the SFDR, which we're all very familiar with, that enhances transparency and sustainability, and it standardizes our disclosures, mainly put in place to prevent greenwashing, which is absolutely critical. We'll see that across key investment funds, which are classified, as I'm sure you're aware, in terms of their sustainability scope, into Articles 6, 8, or 9 funds. That is super important for us to just be aware of. It's there. We're already doing it more than lightly. EU taxonomy as well is a science-based classification system. This defines our environmentally sustainable economic activities. An example of this would be it includes 6 environmental objectives, such as climate change mitigation and adaptation. These you will all be very clearly aware of. These are the key EU pieces of legislation that we will have to align to and report to, both now and over the coming years. But not only are we faced with the bombardment of that alphabet soup from the EU, but that also transfers onto the global stage. And if you move on to the next slide, please, Radhika. This slide looks at the global sustainabilities and disclosures landscape. On the right-hand side of that slide, you will see probably the key sustainability and disclosure reporting standards that you probably need to be aware of. Most of them you'll be familiar with. IFRS being one of them, the International Financial Reporting Standards. S1 and S2 in particular are of importance in terms of sustainability disclosures. Their relevance are they will help Irish companies align with international best practice for ensuring sustainability and consistency in that reporting. That's why IFRS is incredibly important. TCFD, which people would also be quite familiar with, promotes the reporting of climate-related financial risks. It recommends disclosures on governance, on strategy, on risk management, and it has metrics and targets related to climate risks as well. It also covers impact, and that's increasingly adopted by Irish financial institutions to enhance their transparency and also their risk management themselves. The PRI, the Principles for Responsible Investment, some of you may be familiar with that. That's a global standard for integrating the ESG factors into investment decisions. It encourages those who have signed up for it to incorporate ESG issues into investment analysis, decision-making processes, and the ownership policies. I have to say this is widely adopted by Irish asset managers and by institutional investors with the purpose to demonstrate a commitment to responsible investment. And then we also have the second last one here, which would be the GRI standards. They're the global reporting initiatives, and they provide a comprehensive guideline for sustainability reporting. They cover economic, environmental, and the social impacts, and they're used mainly by Irish companies to produce transparent sustainability reports. And then finally, there is sort of a movement that would have been late last year, which would be coming in from the US Securities and Exchange Commission. It has an increasing emphasis on ESG disclosures is coming to pass, particularly in relation to climate risks and human capital management, as they refer to it. The proposals are for enhanced climate-related disclosures. And the implications for that is I would suggest that Irish firms with US market presence or investors need to stay informed on how that's evolving and what those requirements are. So as you can see, just from the last 2 slides that I've given you a very quick whistle-stop tour on, there are many disclosures. It is referred to as the alphabet soup in terms of the acronyms for all of these. And how do we as sustainable finance or those working in the Irish financial services sector adapt and adopt to make sure we're keeping up with all of these reporting and disclosure areas. So if you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, please, Radhika. And I guess, you know, getting an understanding of how complex and how many of those regulatory landscapes and reporting requirements and different requirements on all of us are there. This just gives you sort of a sense of how are we going to do that. So what the report was looking at under key areas that really the interviewees and the data and the research was showing as being areas of concern in terms of the financial services sector. As was mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, a lot of that revolves around data availability and quality. You know, that granularity of data that is required, as I mentioned, there are 1,000 points in CRSD. You know, there's a huge need for detailed and nuanced data, both here and overseas. And that comes in from the EU side and also from the international side. And with that, is there an interoperability between, let's say, reporting into CSRD or GRI, and how is that going to play out? That's still being played out quite a lot at the moment between a lot of those key players that we mentioned. But it still doesn't change the fact that as organizations, we all need to start looking at how we're tracking and how we're gaining that information to be able to report and disclose successfully into these demands and requirements that we're being faced with. It's also how do we do it in a timely manner, and do we as institutions have the correct systems in place to make that immediate? Are we implementing real-time data collection systems that can help address these issues? How are we going to do it? It's not going to be a one-time only. This is going to be asked of us consistently and probably in more depth as time goes on. So that, I think, would probably, from all the interviews and probably from most of the research that we carried out, was absolutely one of the top findings. And I'm sure the conversation after this would probably bring us, you know, to discussing that a little bit more from your own experiences. Another key area that we found was the regulatory and compliance area, again, that was spoken about at the beginning of the webinar. You know, the changes are so rapid and they're coming at us one after the other in terms of the EU and global regulations. It's requiring continuous adaptation, but it's also requiring continuous adaptation in probably new teams and new expertise joining maybe more traditional routes in terms of finance departments. And that's difficult to keep up with. Is it the legal team keeping up with amendments to SFDR and CSRD? Is it the financial team? Who holds the pen on that? And most importantly, who mandates the ongoing updates to the compliance to these ever-changing requirements? That's still being unpacked, but it's very much at the forefront of those at the heart of the Irish financial services, their concerns in terms of what we're facing into in reporting and disclosure. The other interesting point that came out in this area was actually cross-jurisdictional compliance. So the complexities that arise from, you know, diverse global regulations, as we said, if I'm applying one thing to a GRI standard, will that cover me in CSRD? Are my subsidiaries sitting in Europe and I'm based in the US? What's going to hit me in those points? They're very real and they're all being unpacked. And it does mean establishing specialized teams at times to help navigate those complexities. A lot of the time, just while we're starting, it requires a huge input from our legal teams to unpack where we're exposed and what we need to be careful of. But it also requires compliance teams, you know, across many of our functions to make sure that not only is it just legally be complied with, but that's being adhered to across the business. That became very, very clear as well as a main concern. And I think for the next year or two, it will continue until CSRD probably settles down in Ireland for us in terms of reporting. In terms of methodological issues, obviously, it's reconciling those differences that interoperability, as they say, that word that it still doesn't sit particularly well with me. But in terms of the EU standards versus the international standards, again, as I said, there's GRI, there's taxonomy, EU taxonomy, there's the CSRD. You know, if I'm collecting data, can I make sure that that data and my disclosures will be relevant for all of these? That still is in its infancy, and I know the EU are trying really hard to make that interoperability work between IFRS and CSRD at the moment. It's very much ongoing, but we're not there yet, and rightly so. It was pointed out by our interviewees that's still a big concern in terms of being able to tackle that challenge, while there's still quite a bit of uncertainty as to how that's going to occur. And then there's, I guess, looking at integrating with financial reporting, you know, making sure that there's alignment with financial reporting cycles, ensuring ESG disclosures align with their financial reports. You know, a simple way of doing that is making sure that the ESG reporting timelines are aligned with the financial year. But they were still there. That's still, as I said, in its infancy, and just working with that and working with reconciling with financial matrix or metrics, which means, you know, integrating the ESG risks with financial performance indicators, for example, including climate-related risks in financial stress testing. That's still there. It's still in, you know, we're not further along. At least the interviewees were saying they're not, you know, it still needs to be worked out a little bit better. It's still evolving, and was still a key challenge that was noted. And of course, what always happens when you know, new issues are coming in, like sustainability, that's key. This is why ISFCOE are here. This is why skills nets are here. It's that resource and technical constraints that come in with this sudden allowance for having to report, you know, balancing those regulatory obligations with investor expectations, but there's always going to be constraints there. Where are you going to prioritize investments, such as data management, compliance technologies, actually just upskilling your teams, and to make sure that that expertise in sustainable finance and ESG criteria is actually there. And I know that specialized training is available with SkillsNet, and I know that most of us actually make sure our teams are joining that, but that'll be spoken about after my presentation. But I think what came across with the interviewees very much was that's critical that we bring all our teams along. It can't be in silo. It is not a ticks boxing exercise. Everyone needs to be engaged and moving towards understanding, and ESG just forming part of everyone's daily routine across all the business. And then another key issue which came out was that verification and assurance. It's complex. You know, how are we verifying against EU frameworks, against international frameworks? Are there technologies like blockchain that can help us for transparency? What third parties can we use to ensure that that verification is credible? All of this is evolving, but really essential, again, when we are beginning to track our data and make decisions based on that. Stakeholder engagement strategies for addressing our stakeholders' expectations on our sustainability commitment and progress, making that very transparent, super important. Regularly updating stakeholders beyond just investor calls, make them ESG calls. That was seen as absolutely critical as well. Be open, be engaging, be inclusive, very important. That came across as a challenge, and one which some very key members said, you know, that was overcome very well with that transparent approach. So I know I've given you a very quick whistle-top tour over what the report key findings are, and if you have the time, take a look at the report, and they'll probably go into them in greater detail for you to unpack. So they were the findings, and I guess, you know, most of why ISFCOE are here, it's to support us as a community in finding practical ways forward. And And the findings very easily led us to a great path forward. I mean, as was mentioned, we see a very important outcome as, there is a need to commit continuous learning and development in this field. It's moving quickly. Regular workshops and certifications for employees is absolutely essential. Promoting that culture of continuous professional development to keep pace with the changing ESG landscape is absolutely critical. Making sure that every members of team are aware that this conference is going on, there are ESG webinars that they can attend, just to upskill themselves, because what comes across is this is going to touch every single team and every single department. While some will be hitting the reporting and disclosures, everyone will actually be asked probably to contribute, whether that's a HR team contributing for an S standard in CSRD. So that understanding of continuous learning and development across the banking sector and across financial services was seen as absolutely paramount. Secondly, it was tech, digital innovation. It's super important in order for this to be future-proofed for all of us, that there is a good investment in technology and that we're working closely with our IT teams to enhance data management, reporting accuracy and compliance. Exploring the possibility of using AI and advanced analytics to help us start to plan for 3 to 5 years' time, to help us improve data granularity and accuracy, and real-time reporting capabilities, because it's not going anywhere. So we need to make sure that what we're reporting is accurate and that the data, it all starts with clean data. And we need to get our data teams involved. Again, not one part of our organizations can sit in silo with this. The third point, which very much came across on the international stage, and I think is very strong here in Ireland as well, which is to foster a collaborative ecosystem. And what we mean by that, I guess, or what came across when we were looking into this, was to strengthen partnerships with regulatory bodies, with academic institutions, industry experts, and actually among peers, among organizations like ISFCOE. Joint research projects like this should be encouraged. If there's best practice, let's share it, let's work together. We'll only ever learn from each other, and let's work in partnership, because without us all working in partnership on a lot of these levels, change will be easier. It has worked incredibly successfully in other industries. The pharma, it's worked very well. It's worked very well in tech and probably in telco, actually. It just would be something that came across as very strong. And I guess for those in attendance, it's worth thinking about in terms of what are maybe what we would perceive as competitors, but our peers doing in this field, and what can we learn from them. Embed sustainability in core strategies, again, integrating that ESG into risk management, into decision-making processes. It should be going across the whole, every single department. That's absolutely critical as well. It's not just, as we said, just for reporting purposes. We need to see this embedded into the core and the structures of daily decision-making across our institutions. And to ensure that they obviously align with what we will be reporting on. So, that there is that awareness there of things like CSRD. And then engaging in stakeholders, which I spoke about earlier, that critical piece of regular stakeholder meetings, regular feedback, transparent communication. It builds trust, it demonstrates commitment. It means that, no, we may not have it all right now, but we're working towards getting there, and there will be hiccups on the road, and that's okay. And that came across in some really interesting, engaging discussions with some of the experts. And then, of course, obviously, lead by example. We all want to position ourselves as leaders in sustainable finance. Let's, showcase our best practice. Let's get it out there on our comms. Very much important, both internally and then externally on the Irish stage, and then beyond in the EU stage and international fora, to encourage everyone to see that, yes, we are working on this, and we're working on it as best we can. And if you wouldn't mind, just I think that's the end of my presentation. I know I've kept you with quite a bit of time. Radhika, if you just put it up onto the thank you slide there, but it's just to say from our side, it was a great report to be part of. The Irish financial sector is facing challenges, but also huge opportunities, I think, in terms of reporting. Looking at how we, as Irish financial services, can focus on data refinement, how we can really work to, step up to these new EU standards coming into play, how sustainability should be probably integrated now into our risk management. That concept again of that stakeholder transparency, building credibility, is absolutely at the core of all of this. It's all very positive. It is a good opportunity, and those key points that hopefully we'll move on to, which is investing in training, capacity building, will really support this. And I think we should be proactive, and I think we're seeing us as being proactive in terms of aligning to these new reports and disclosures, whether that be, as we said, CSRD, GRI, and that will help us avoid and safeguard against greenwashing, which is absolutely where none of us want to be. But look, thanks for your attention. I've realized I've probably held you far too long. I'm happy to take any questions at the end of the webinar if there's time, and if not, do reach out to me yourselves, or have a read of the report in full itself. Thanks so much, Radhika.
Oh, thank you, Helen. These takeaways and everything shared by you and the great work on the report is extremely commendable. Like, we can't thank you enough. And of course, the journey, with you, learning with you has been an experience. So thank you so much. And of course, we'll upload the report. We'll share the links with you all, and this is an excellent presentation that we would like to share with everybody, because this clearly gives a good understanding of what the report entails. So thank you so much, Helen. So now we'll move to Siobhan. So at ISFCOE, we strive to create an enabling ecosystem for financial institutions to advance the reporting and disclosure efforts. This leads us to the Professional Diploma in Sustainable Finance Reporting and Disclosure for October 2024. This diploma aims to empower professionals in finance reporting and assurance functions within the financial services industry. This course is brought to you by a Sustainable Finance SkillNet. And now we'll invite Siobhan. Siobhan leads on all our center's efforts on skills and courses and everything under the whole talent management effort. Siobhan is the network manager for Sustainable Finance SkillNet and is responsible for the procurement of bespoke sustainable finance training programs and events to meet demand from the Irish financial services sector, along with commissioning research reports and thought leadership in the area. Siobhan has previously worked with Change by Degrees to deliver strategic sustainability advice to a wide variety of clients, including SMEs and corporates. Experienced people leader with 18 years of experience in financial services as a credit manager, relationship manager, and a project manager, skilled in debt restructuring, credit analysis, risk management, and compliance. Siobhan, please.
Thanks, Radhika, for that amazing introduction. Delighted to be with you this morning. So as Radhika said, I'm the network manager for Sustainable Finance SkillNet. And just to outline, I suppose, where we fit into this jigsaw, we are one of 72 SkillNets in Ireland. As some of you may know, SkillNet is the National Talent Development Agency of Ireland. And in partnership with the industry, SkillNet offers upskilling programs and business supports to companies of all sizes. Our SkillNet, which, as we've discussed, is Sustainable Finance SkillNet, and our key aim is to develop skills and leadership capacity to advance the ESG best practice across Ireland's financial services sector. So as we're saying, I'm here today to talk to you primarily about the Level 9 Professional Diploma in Sustainable Finance Reporting and Disclosures that we've developed with the Institute of Bankers and it's developed to meet the needs in this area for financial services professionals or people who want to pivot into an ESG-based role. So the main purpose of this programme is to empower professionals across all financial services to take the lead in environmental, social and governance, regulatory reporting and disclosure endeavours. As regulatory demands heighten and the deadline for implementing new EU sustainable finance reporting requirements draws near, preparedness within the industry is paramount. By completing this programme, you'll significantly augment your understanding and proficiency in sustainable finance reporting and disclosures, equipping you with the practical tools to integrate sustainability practices effectively within your organisation. So just with regarding funding eligibility, and to obtain up to a 30% funded discount on this programme from Sustainable Finance SkillNet, candidates must be based, to be eligible, candidates must be based in the Republic of Ireland and must be employed within private enterprise. If you're interested in seeking a funded place on this programme, please contact yourselves at skills@isfcoe.org and we'd be delighted to discuss this with you. And that email address is also on the Institute of Bankers course link, which we'll be sharing with you after this. And just also, as I'm here, just to mention, we also have other postgrad courses that we've developed with other institutions, and they're also open for registrations currently. One is the Level 9 Professional Diploma in Sustainable Financial Technology and Innovation, with Maynooth University. And the other is the Level 8 Professional Diploma in Sustainable Finance for Compliance, Risk and Governance Professionals with the Institute of Bankers. We in Sustainable Finance SkillNet also offer a range of shorter programmes on EU taxonomy, net zero, Irish funds and biodiversity for finance, which we will be running over the coming months. And again, please contact skills@isfcoe.org to express an interest or seek more information. Thank you. Back to you, Radhika.
Thanks, Siobhan. This is so helpful. I'll just type in the email address for everybody to sort of write to. Yeah, thanks, Siobhan. So now we're just open for questions and we'd open the floor for questions, and please feel free to reach out to us. Sorry, Siobhan, you saying something? Yeah. Any questions? So it's like I can't see anybody raising their hands. Typing, just a minute, yeah. Helen, a question for you. How can we best support financial institutions as they navigate the incorporation of ESG in their financial reports?
Sorry, it's just unmuting. I guess, the first thing you will obviously do from that perspective would be, as was noted in the presentation, would be align your reporting cycles, collaborate with your regulators, with your industry peers, to make sure that there are clear deadlines to allow you to integrate your disclosures really easily in transition. But probably beyond that, and the most important piece, it's always going to come back to data, good, clean data, which will take time to get. Data is probably everywhere across all our institutions, but how do we get that all into a good platform, cloud-based? When you have figured that system out, that data system, and it will be messy, and I think it's going to take some time, then you'll be able to get that real-time data. You'll be able to really meet reporting cycles and the demands across many of the alphabet soup that you will have to do. It probably requires a dedicated reporting team. They will be cross-functional. They will hit the legal teams. There will be data analysts. There'll be sustainability experts. They will be finance. And they will have to learn to work together. Again, it's just a new way of reporting, which is coming into play. But we couldn't, or at least what came across from those reports and from the interview and from the research we did, that ability to get clean data and the focus on that, and to make sure that it's cross-functional, it comes from everybody and everybody is feeding into that well, is absolutely paramount. I think you're on mute, Radhika, just to let you know.
Sorry. Oh, thank you. So it's great. Thank you for answering that. But there's another question which says that how can organizations ensure the accuracy and reliability of the data, and what role should third-party assurance play?
Well, absolutely everything is going to have to be verified and signed off, like normal financial reporting, and therefore when you are collecting and doing it, it has to hit those verification points, and hopefully be guided with that. From the CSRD's perspective, each of the 1,000 points you will be asked to give it in a specific format. Again, it'll be in what's called the XBRL, or the taxonomy, not the EU taxonomy now, but the reporting taxonomy, which will allow that to be uploaded. It will be publicly available. That in itself, when anything is publicly available, means that we have to make sure that the information we're sharing is accurate, and it also has to be audited by third parties, no more so than like financial accounts.
No, thank you.
Right.
Fadlim, would you, so he says, thanks for the great presentations and the points mentioned by Dr. Kavanagh about third parties operating within the space that ensure transparency and credibility. Are there more players entering this space, and do you have ideas of how more could be encouraged?
Sorry, Radhika, could you just read that one more time to me? Apologies.
So basically, just thanking you for the presentation and agreeing on your third parties operating within the space to ensure transparency. The question is, are there more players entering the space, and do you have ideas of how more could be encouraged?
Are there more? Yes, there will obviously be more players entering the space. There is a need and a demand backlog on this. Do I have any idea on how to encourage them to enter? Not off the top of my head, and I don't mean that deliberately. I think it is evolving and expanding and changing, and one we need to be aware of. And I think it's a really good point made, and one that I'll probably take away and think about, and again engage with my own colleagues on.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. To Gillian, a question for you probably. In what ways do you envision the Centre taking the lead in advancing sustainable finance initiatives for Ireland?
Sorry, just unmuting. So the centre taking the lead, is it? For Ireland. Okay, so basically the centre works on in three core ways, in capacity building, research and convening. And we, using those, work to accelerate the mobilisation of capital and finance in support of Ireland's net zero, nature positive and just economic transition. And in doing this, we hope to position Ireland as a leader in sustainable finance. So we focus again on the roadmap's 5 key pillars. The Sustainable Finance Roadmap, there's talent development, industry readiness, leveraging digital creating an enabling environment, and promotion and communications. So we have lots of different ways of reaching our goals. The government's Ireland for Finance Action Plan 2024, Action 1, prioritises the continued delivery of Ireland's roadmap, with us, with the centre as the lead delivery partner. So that obviously is indicating that there's a continued focus at government level on Irish financial services upskilling in the area of sustainable finance. It is a key ask as we go forward. As we've seen, our talent development outputs are delivered via the SkillNet supported Sustainable Finance SkillNet. And so far, we've supported, that has supported the upskilling of over 3,000 Irish located financial services professionals from about just over 1,000 firms. And that's with a combined public-private sector cost of investment of 1.4 million. So that's quite substantial, and that speaks to what we're achieving. So that our key, of course, is to continue to develop the knowledge and skills, as Siobhan has so perfectly set out earlier. So apart from that, we have, as I've mentioned, the postgraduates, and which are world leading and based only in Ireland. So yeah, I guess all of those different factors work together to propel sustainable finance to, if not the top, at least near the very top of the agenda for government. And that's something that we're very committed to delivering in partnership with SkillNet Ireland. So I hope that kind of answers it. Short answer is yes, it's important. And yes, we're doing it.
No, definitely, Gillian. No, thank you. That's very, very encouraging and hopeful. Now, just one question for Siobhan, and I think we'll close then. It's how's the SFDR course that you've mentioned about is going to benefit financial professionals?
Okay, thanks, Radhika. So just, I suppose the SFDR, this program is aimed at those who are employed or aspiring to be employed in financial reporting, risk or finance functions, or working in dedicated sustainability teams with the knowledge, the skills and competencies to report, advise on and advance the sustainability agenda across and within the financial services industry sector. The programme will greatly enhance your knowledge and expertise in reporting disclosures and in relation to sustainable finance, and provide you with the practical tools that you need to implement sustainability practices within your organisations, or also in terms of if you're not in a particular finance role, if you want to pivot into the area, it's also open to give you the groundworks to allow you to pivot into it with a huge amount of knowledge to help you in a forthcoming role as well.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. No, thank you everyone for joining us today. And we will just keep
on mute, Radhika.
Oh, me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. So yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and please keep on a lookout for our report on the website. I'll be pasting the website link here. And thank you, Helen, again. We'd definitely be sharing the presentations and the reports with everybody. Thank you so much, Gillian. Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.